atheism, researchers have shown that most atheists, interestingly, have daddy issues. And they are rebellious against a patriarchal God that wants to control you. Because what is it? It's a projection of the daddy image. So they hate the daddy image, right?
Yeah.
I don't want a God like that. So atheism really paradoxically, it's a more enlightened form of looking for the truth, because it says, I don't want to have a relationship with a God that's dysfunctional, abuses you, will burn you in hell while telling you you're being loved. Who the fuck wants to sign up for that? And so it's just a big story. Yes, it is. It is a story. It's all a story, every bit of it. And the story is designed to have checks and balances so that if you get too unconscious about it and start believing things that aren't true, it hurts.
Right.
And you start asking bigger questions. Okay, now here we come. Dun, 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 dun. Then finally you start reading different religious books, and your view of God and life and yourself expands.
Yep.
And you go, oh my Jesus, this is amazing. And you read the Hindu scriptures, and you hear Atman is Brahman and Brahman is Atman. God is soul and soul is God. That means I'm God. How did I do that to myself? It means God is in me, but it also means God is in everybody else. And you think, well, how in the hell did that happen? Right? How did God do that? How is God in everybody? Well, let me see. What would happen if I took 1 billion flower pots and filled them with water and went out on a full moon and looked in every single flower pot? What would you see?
1 billion full moons.
1 billion full moons! That's because God is reflected in all of them. And it doesn't matter how many flower pots there have, that one moon shows up in every one of them. So God is the consciousness reflecting itself in every being, just like the moon reflects itself in every pot at night, okay? Or the sun bounces off every ocean and every stream. And so all of a sudden you start realizing yourself and you go, wait a minute. I couldn't be here if I wasn't breathing all this air. I'm breathing 25,900 breaths a day. Where'd that come from? Well, then you do a scientific analysis and find out, guess what, boys and girls? You're breathing atoms from Jesus' body, from Krishna's body, from Buddha's body, from outside. You're drinking atoms. You're drinking their piss, too. I mean, this has actually been investigated mathematically and scientifically.
Right.
So you say, where'd my food come from? Out there. Where's the air coming from? Out there. Where'd all the molecules in my body come from? Out there. Okay, well, they came from the earth. Yeah, but where'd the stuff of the earth come from? Oh, the sun. Well, where'd the stuff in the sun come from? Stars from all around it. Where'd that come from? Stars from all around it. When does that end? Never. Okay, so what do you find out? If you go physically, it took the whole universe to create you. The entire universe conspired to create you so you could have a body for your soul to dance in. So God could pretend to be Mimi and pretend to be Chase, pretend to be Paul, and come to this damn costume party and play hide and go seek and just think it's the greatest thing in the world. Yeah. And the more you forget about God, the more exciting it is when you figure it out. And God goes, oh my God, that was amazing. It was the best trick I ever did on myself. Shit, it took me 14,000 lifetimes to figure it out. Fuck. Cool. Let's try it again, because I got nothing but 14,000 more lifetimes to keep creating. Okay, so you ultimately start having the realization that who and what you are is bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's what spirituality really is at its essence. It is a connection to a progressively larger whole. So you realize, wow, I couldn't be here without my mom and dad. And I wouldn't really know who I am without my friends, my family, and my teachers. I couldn't be here without the water. I couldn't be here without the fish that I eat, and the birds that I eat, and the animals that I eat, and the plants that I eat. And they couldn't be here without the planet. And the planet, we couldn't have life on the planet without the moon. If the tide stopped moving, everything would die. And if we didn't have any sun, nothing would live. So I couldn't be here without the sun, but the sun couldn't be here without the galaxy. The galaxy couldn't be here without the super galaxy. And the super galaxy couldn't be here without the universe. And the universe couldn't be here without God. Because you have to have something to make something. There has to be some source of potential. And so this is called the positiva path to enlightenment. You keep learning more and more and asking bigger and bigger questions until all of a sudden it slaps you upside the head. And what happens is you start having mystical experiences. You sit there and contemplate, and all of a sudden you experience yourself as the whole world. And you go, wow, that was scary as hell. What happened? Then you start having experiences of yourself as the whole universe, a samadhi. And you go, Jesus, Murphy, that's mind-blowing. Okay, so here's the punchline. First, you got to build a mind so you can ask questions and do your investigations. But then ultimately, you become more and more like God and you blow your mind.
Yeah.
So Spirit Gym is where we build a mind to blow it. That's what we do here. First, we learn why we're here. We learn why we go through all this indoctrination process and why we have to go through all these stories. Because we're ultimately playwrights. We're co-creators. We're authors. With God says, hey, now that you're in the dream, what can you come up with? It's your turn. And when you're sound asleep, you just keep believing everybody else's stories. But when you wake up and say, okay, God's in me, that means I got the pen too, damn it.
Yeah.
That's enough of this vegetarian shit. I'm hungry.
Right. Yeah.
And it's enough of this, hands off. If I can't get laid, I'm going to do it for myself.
Right.
And I'm going to be a happy person instead of a grumpy person on antidepressants all the time. And so, the beautiful thing is as you learn more and more about the truth of yourself and the truth of God, you realize segregation and isolation and all this religious division. It's third grade.
It's silly.
It's third grade. It's for kids.
So silly.
But what's it for? It's to build a matrix in your mind because you have to have a sense of self-reflection. And ultimately, paradoxically, you got to know what God isn't so you can recognize what God is. And the devil is the symbol for what God isn't.
Yeah.
Right? God isn't what wants to torture you. Now, paradoxically, God is the devil, but God had to create the devil to get you home. Because if you were just too happy eating fucking grapes and drinking wine all the time and money just fell out of the sky, you would stop growing and you wouldn't ask the big question, who am I? You say, I'm too busy being stoned and eating donuts to ask these questions. But when you go through a divorce, the donuts and the grapes don't do the trick.
Yep.
In fact, you get empty inside. And when you lose your business or you lose a limb or you get a serious disease, you start asking bigger questions. So the whole thing is set up so that as soon as you start getting passive and not contributing to God's own evolution, because look, here's a paradox. Can God know itself and the truth of itself if you don't? Isn't that amazing? You see, because it doesn't matter what I know about God or what I've experienced about God. That's just a story to you. God has no meaning until it has meaning for you, because you cannot take responsibility, nor can you have anyone else's experience. You understand this?
Yep.
So it doesn't matter how vast God is. Until you know God, God cannot be known. And because it is God that's the seed of knowing within you. God is the seed of conscious within you. God is the soul within you, the entelechy, the guiding principle that ultimately wants to go on the hero's journey to know itself and to truly, genuinely love itself. The devil is critical because God does not want to be loved by a robot. I mean, how much of a relationship can you have with a blow-up doll? She always says yes.
Yep.
She's got no personality. That's not real love. There's no satiation in that. That's the problem with pornography. It's pseudo-eros. It's not real love. It's empty, right? So it never fulfills the soul. Love always comes with responsibility. A lot of people that are in love with porn don't realize they're avoiding the responsibility of being a co-creator with God.
Right.
They don't want the responsibility of a relationship.
Or the responsibility or the pressure or the
risk of
work,
rejection.
The risk of
failure.
rejection, the work of going out and meeting someone and putting yourself out there and possibly getting
Which
shut
means
down.
you're a child with adult sex organs.
Yep.
You want the freedom of a child and the codependency that somebody else will take care of you, but you won't have to do the work of being a daddy, a mommy, or a lover.
Yeah.
Right? So it's essentially a byproduct of the enculturation of keeping people in the child archetype to keep them controllable and passive so that they don't become awake enough to say, screw you, I'm not doing that. I'm not following your rules And the worst thing you can do is kill me, and I'll just go back to being what I was before, love. Okay? So, this is far more magical and far more mysterious than most people's imagination can grapple with. You see, when you talk about the qualities of God, you're dealing with infinities. How do you get an infinity out of God will burn you in hell for touching this or doing that or eating this or drinking that? That is such a drastic limitation on God. It'll choke you to death. Yeah. It'll suffocate the soul. But you know what? If you want to get someone to do some work, choke them. Mm-hmm. If I hold your head underwater, you'll get real athletic.
Right.
You get my point?
Yep.
When you suffocate a soul, it struggles to get fresh air. And so paradoxically, the function of the devil and the function of the struggle is to keep you asking bigger questions and looking for the truth. And then all of a sudden you begin having enlightenment experiences, but you got to drop your biases or you cannot see what's right in front of you. And this is why Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is on earth. The kingdom of heaven is before you, but men do not see it. It's right in front of you all the time. Yeah. Because I got news for you. There's nowhere God cannot be. That's just like
right in front of you and within you.
That's why they say God is closer than your breath.
Yeah.
I mean, God's holding every atom of you together. If it wasn't for God, there would be no soul. If there wasn't for soul, there'd be no consciousness or self. And if it wasn't for selves, there'd be no love. And if there wasn't any love, there would be no flow of energy and information through empathic and compassionate connection to self or others. So there would be no life.
Yeah.
And if there was no life, there would be no experience for God. And if there was no experience for God, then God wouldn't even want to know itself, which means this conversation wouldn't be happening, nor would anything else. And that would make for a very boring state of emptiness.
Thank you so much for listening.
If you enjoyed that, check out right over here for some more fun clips.
Oh, and you're going to want to subscribe.
Bye.